Hey, good afternoon. Actually, good evening.
And good night.
And good night. Welcome back to the show. It is me, Chris, and of course, we are here with Rip.
There you go.
Jimmy.
I was wondering if you're going to catch that.
Yes. Yeah. Sorry. Might be a good night to take someone to the train station.
Steal my thunder.
Yeah. Sorry. Hey, welcome to election night. We're not going to do the whole election night thing because I don't think Jimmy or I, either one of us, want to stay up until 3 a.m.
No, we don't even know. We could be here a long time.
Yeah. It's kind of looking like it's as projected. It's going to be very close. There's a lot of states that are closing up here on the East Coast that are too close to call. There's some, like my state of our state of Maryland, that has 0% reporting, and they've already called it.
Done. Hey, they finally, just like in the last minute, started reporting. We have 0.25, 0.27%.
Oh, nice.
Finally coming in for Maryland. Looks like the only thing that's funny because they're all
the rural.
The only reporting that came in is actually red. They're still calling it for Kamala.
Yeah, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion that she's going to win Maryland. It wouldn't matter if you propped up a dead corpse and called them a Democrat; they're winning Maryland. So, they did basically.
They did.
So, we got some early calls for the election tonight. I think we can go through them here real quick.
Where we stand, right?
Where we stand right now.
So we got some blue states for Kamala. Illinois has been called, Maryland's been called, Jersey's been called, and then we have all the northeastern, Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and Rhode Island all called for Kamala. So she's sitting at a comfortable 72 electoral votes right now, with Donald Trump leading with 111. So a big bulk of the southeast, Midwest, if you call this. I hate.
I know. What do you call them?
This is the central United States.
Yeah.
But for weird people, they call them the Midwest. Actually, other than Illinois, pretty solid red, as to be expected. So really, the key stuff that we're looking at, right, is what potential states are going to flip from
2020.
2020. Yeah. So some key states to watch out for there: Pennsylvania, Virginia, North Carolina, because they're going to be a little bit closer. Georgia was blue in the 2020 election. Joe Biden took that by a narrow margin. But what we're seeing this time around is a slight red lead, if I can double check. Yeah, so
it's leaning red.
Definitely leaning red. Actually, more than 50% vote is in, with a 55 to 44 lead by Donald Trump. That seems like pretty solid.
Seems high. Yeah. Because I think Georgia was one of those states that was won by less than 20,000 votes last time by Joe Biden. So if 50%, over 50% of the vote is in, and he's got a 10-point lead, and that's counting. If I read that right, that's counting Atlanta.
Yeah, that Atlanta is in.
Then there's not much room for.
Or at least a majority of it is.
Yeah. There might be like one or two little pieces of it.
Yeah, there's a lot of counties remaining, but a lot of counties are in, and it looks pretty solid red. That's a
flip.
Sign. That's a flip.
Yeah.
That gives Trump an extra 16 electoral votes that he did not receive in 2020.
Right.
I think I made it back here. Okay. We wanted to see what happened there. I wonder how everybody's feeling.
Yeah.
I've been excited. To see what's coming down. I just don't know. I don't know what to expect, to be honest.
Well, it's kind of funny. I was having a conversation with one of my coworkers today, and they're all freaking out about the election. Of course, they're freaking out that they think Donald Trump's going to win.
They're freaking out about that? Well, they should be freaking out about that.
But I was like, look, at the end of the day, if we're being real, regardless of who wins the presidency, if they don't also win the House and the Senate, it kind of doesn't matter.
Yeah, I was explaining that to my son today. He was kind of asking me about it, and it definitely makes it difficult
Right.
to do anything. And
But that's the intention. That's why you have three different branches of government. Like it makes it really bad for people who don't like. When the Democrats or Republicans have the House, the Senate, and
yeah,
the White House. I mean, you're pushing through an agenda that only half the country agrees with.
I think sometimes that's necessary.
Sometimes it is.
I
I'm
think
not saying it's a
I
bad thing.
think
I'm just
we're-
saying
I
that.
think we need that pendulum to swing back.
But if you think about it, also that's why the Congress and Senate elections are off-year elections as well.
Mhm.
So right now,
If there's too much, yeah.
yeah.
Pressure one way.
So right now, you have a very favorable uh, uh, roadmap for Republicans to take both the House and the Senate. I think the Senate there's only 10 or 11 Republican senators that are up for re-election, but there's 22 Democrats, and it was only a 1-seat margin anyway. So it's definitely a favorable roadmap for Republicans to take the Senate. Now, they already had the House, and the expectation, I think, from everything I've looked at, is that they're either going to maintain what they have, which is only like a 5-seat difference, I think, and that may go up to like a 7 to 10 seat lead. But there you have it. If Kamala Harris is elected president, she's effectively a lame duck president from the start because they're never going to send any legislation to her desk for her to sign. Not that she'll sign; she'll veto it, and Now the Senate will be interesting because I can feasibly see them getting up to 53, 54. The Republicans, which is a lot bigger of a majority. It would be what? It would be 46 to 54.
Yeah.
So that's a much more significant majority.
Comfortable because so we don't have to count on Larry Hogan.
Mhm.
He makes his way in there.
Right.
We don't
Right.
have to count on him holding to the party line, which we
Right.
know he's not necessarily going to do.
Right.
Stuff like that. But we were just having a discussion about Larry Hogan.
Yeah.
And I think he is going to take it in Maryland, and I think Chris is leaning definitely the opposite way.
I don't. Maybe. I just think she had even with her scandals of her not paying taxes and for 2 decades and all the millions of dollars worth of property taxes or whatever she hasn't paid or whatever it was for the 4 or 5 properties that she has or whatever it was. I don't even remember how much it was or anything like that, but nobody cares about that shit. I mean, especially not here. I mean, she's got a D next to her name. That's gonna give her 90% clout.
Well, I think that's why that same justification is why I think he's going to win. I say that because if he hadn't ran before and he was just the other Republican, I think he wouldn't win. But because he has that name recognition, I think that these elections are so heavily favored with a name recognition piece as well as even a gender piece. I think that that's going to play a factor in a lot of people's decisions. I think people are a little dissuaded by these weak female candidates that we've had giving with Kamala Harris. Nobody's putting up a strong, solid representation for a female. When I say nobody, there's plenty across the country. There's some fantastic women in Congress that are crushing it. I'm talking about the
new
more
ones.
spotlights.
Yeah.
Well, Kamala in particular, I think she's giving people a bad taste in her mouth. With Hogan, people have that recognition with him. He
was the governor
for a long time, and so people are like, hey, he did well for us. They were comfortable with him during COVID years. And I say the majority. I mean, we're begrudgingly voting for that dude because I'm not a fan of Lockdown Larry.
Yeah.
He completely lost me with wear the damn mask.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. No.
You can go screw yourself.
You're welcome.
I was not a fan. But if he's my option versus the Democrat,
a liberal,
option,
progressive,
that's a whole,
which she is.
And honestly, that's how I think most people should feel about this election. Even if they have some beef with Donald Trump, they're like, well, I just can't get over everybody. The only arguments I see people making are about the fact that he didn't concede the 2020 election. He didn't commit to a peaceful transfer of power. First of all, he completed a peaceful transition of power.
Yeah.
That happened. You can't argue with that. If you're going to try to tell me that he incited an insurrection on January 6th, I don't have any time for that conversation. Look at what he said. Look at what happened. Did he do that? No, he didn't. Did he try to push and get the election in his favor? Yeah, he did. Did he have some pretty reasonable reasons to back that up? I think he did. Some people disagree. I think he lost the election because within the rules that they had, they allowed a lot of garbage to get through.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they had. So he lost the election. It's unfortunate. They didn't. I don't know if they did much to shore that up this time around. I hope they did.
I will see.
But yeah, we'll see. But I think that was a major factor, and by design. People that say, "Oh, there's no evidence of that." Yeah, that's pretty much by design. If you don't enforce voter ID and you don't enforce actual coming to the polls and allow mail-in ballots that actually eliminates that, how can you even prove that there was fraud that occurred?
Yeah.
When even if it was happening on a mass scale, it wouldn't matter because there's no mechanism to actually prevent that.
Right.
And you're allowing illegal citizens to vote all over the place.
Okay.
Illegal aliens, I should say, not citizens. Citizens from other countries. So yeah, that needs to get cleaned up. We'll see.
Yeah, so I think that just watching some other things that we were watching a little while ago. I don't think. I think it's. I think maybe the pollsters semi got this one right, where it is going to be a little bit more razor thin than I anticipated. I honestly didn't think that it was going to be, and it may not be. It may turn out. It's so early.
It's very early.
I mean, it may turn out where, by, an hour from now, there's a whole different story. We still have a whole bunch. The West Coast. I think we got another 2 or 3 hours before their polls close.
Yeah.
10, 9, 8. So if they close at 8 o'clock, that's 11 o'clock our time.
Yeah. And that's what I do think that we're going to have a pretty good position on where this lands because we know the West Coast is
it's a foregone conclusion.
Heavily blue anyway.
We know Washington, we know Oregon, we know California.
The
question's gonna be Nevada
and Arizona. That went blue in 2020. So those were major factors in that decision.
Yeah.
And they're looking like they're going to be red this time around.
Okay. It's very possible.
Based on the polling. So we will see. It's still very early.
Yeah. So I'm optimistic. Still, but again, I'm one of those people that, you also have to look at the big picture, and the big picture is, does it suck that your candidate didn't win? Yes. And that goes either side. You vote for somebody because you want them to win. But the bigger picture is, again, if Kamala Harris wins, she's not going to have the Senate, which means absolutely no legislation, no laws that are wonky or woke or any of that shit are ever going to make it to her desk, at least for the first 2 years of a Harris administration.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. But see, the thing is, there's different standards, there's different realities for the Republicans. This is why I'm not afraid of a heavy-handed, one-sided
Sure.
government for a little while, because if Kamala Harris wins, she's not going to be facing a impeachment
Right.
hearing, or inquiry
An immediate impeachment.
every month.
Whereas our congressman Jamie Raskin has already punched that off. Trump wins, we're going to invoke the 14th Amendment and try to invalidate his that
before he even takes office.
And he's spewing that prior to election day. Mm-hmm. So the same thing that they were doing when he won, when they were already spewing the impeachment shit before the votes were even counted.
Yep.
So who's really, they like to use that term threat to democracy. Who's the threat to democracy? Who's doing all this shit before anything is even decided?
I think we say it all the time, but
we do.
Everything that the Democrats accuse the Republicans of doing, that's exactly
they're doing themselves. Doing. Yep. That's how you know exactly what they're doing. Yeah. If they're chirping about it, they're doing it.
Exactly. Yeah. We got a lot to happen, a lot to go through. I think because we don't know a lot, I'm still very optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm worried about the sweat. I think it was different in 2016. We can go ahead and go back now. We have some time to kind of wait this out. But I was sitting in my office at work for 2016, and I worked overnight. But I think for me, I didn't really have much of a hope for Donald Trump to win. Mm-hmm. He was going up against a Goliath candidate, Hillary Clinton, who had the potential to be the first female president. She obviously has a whole history in politics. Yeah. She was an actual
She had the name recognition because of her husband.
She was a strong female candidate. She wasn't. She had been, the head of the Department of State.
Yeah.
Definitely was able to work with other countries and would have been a force on that front.
And quite frankly, Hillary's a war hawk.
Right.
So
yeah. So that, to me, that was something that was a force. But I was working night shift, sat there all night long, and I started looking around as the numbers were really changing, and he's catching up, and I'm like, whoa, what is happening? Yeah. And we were, I was getting very excited. That was a fun night because my expectations were low. Yeah. I think tonight my expectations are just high. I can't help it.
Yeah.
But
you have to, but that's the thing. We're looking at the contrast in the opposition, right? So Hillary Clinton, like we said, was a legitimate, strong candidate, male or female. She was just a strong candidate because she had the history, she had the background, she had done the job to a certain degree with being the Secretary of State. So she had her foreign affairs experience. Kamala Harris has none of that.
No, that's why I just have to be so confident, because this time around, he's in much better position than he was back then. Mm. She is the weakest of weak candidates we have ever seen.
She's weaker than Biden.
Absolutely. But the only thing is she, I would say she presents better than Biden.
Well, she can talk.
He's falling apart.
She can make a sentence.
Right. So by virtue of that, she looks like a better candidate because the standards are so low with him. But from a policy standpoint, she's an absolute wet noodle. She does nothing.
Well, we have no idea whether she's a wet noodle because we don't know what any of her policies are.
It's just she flops around and doesn't have any sort of substance to her.
Everything she's taken has come from somebody else.
Right.
She took all Joe Biden's policies and posted them on her website. Even as far as my thing is like she has no creativity and no ability to be original.
We see that because she can't talk without a teleprompter.
Yeah. But look at the I don't know if you saw, but Saturday Night Live let her secretly come on and do their show on Saturday. That skit was a skit that was done back in 2016 with Donald Trump.
I think they use that style skit for other people, other celebrities that they bring on that they mock. So I think that may be a trend. But yes, you're right. That was it's an unoriginal.
Yeah, completely unoriginal.
When they set her up, yeah. To be fair, they have kind of gone pretty hard against Biden and Kamala in recent weeks or months. So,
Mm.
but yeah, it was still like a weird thing for them to do, and to basically go against the FCC standards that require.
Well, and what ended up resulting from that was because of the FEC rules, they had to give Donald Trump a free 90-second spot on Monday Night Football. So, which, you know, let's be frank, Kamala Harris going on Saturday Night Live, she's only talking to her base anyway. I would much rather have a free 90-second spot on Monday Night Football that has a much bigger audience.
Yep. I agree.
So I mean, and you know, they had to do it. They had to or they were going to face fines and everything else. Now, interestingly enough, I wonder if, you know, Jill Stein or any of the other candidates that are on there are, you know, going to complain that they didn't get their 90 seconds of free airtime.
That's true. I wonder why they didn't do anything about that, because it's got to be equal time for all candidates.
That's right.
Not just,
if they're on a ballot, then
that's a fair point.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Like I said, I'm optimistic. We have a lot left to go. Like I said, the West Coast is not even close to being done.
Well, and again, I'm going to go back to why I feel optimistic, because, and this is how I felt from this whole campaign, because it's not just Trump versus Kamala or Trump versus Biden. It's the right versus left. It's the whole. We've seen what the left produces for this entire term.
Yep.
It's not. It isn't just about her. You need to look at it from the whole party and what they stand for, and then the whole. It's not just about Trump. It's the whole party and what they stand for, and where they're trending towards a party that is united with people that are coming across the aisle, people that are finding ways to find common ground and get along and move things forward that isn't this crazy, insane, woke leftist extremism. And we have some, but still, the election is razor thin potentially, like you said, and it's all because of these one issue voters.
Yes, abortion. Like when did that become like even a?
They push it, the media.
I know, but I'm like. As a person, woman, man or woman, like things that affect you day to day.
Yes, exactly. You're getting it.
I don't understand how that's even a top 10. Because let's be honest. How many women are actually routinely? Oh my God, I'm not going to be able to have an abortion.
Right.
Never. It's only in an election year.
And it's probably a lot of these. I'm not going to disparage too many people, but people that, you know, it's never going to be an issue for them.
Right. Yes. 100%. I know right where you're going with that. But you brought up an interesting point, and I think that the answer is yes. I go back to the same thing I already said. What will be interesting if Harris wins, it'll be interesting to see the down. I think that's where you have to look at the down ballot voting in those same states. In other words, say she wins Arizona, right? But the House and Senate seats in Arizona flip. Right. And that tells you right there, it was more of an anti-Donald Trump vote than it was an anti-Republican vote. And so we'll have to go back and look at the down ballot votes are going to tell the story, I think, if it comes to that.
Yeah, where do we see that? We saw a state that was heavily...
Vermont, maybe?
Yeah, I think so, because we saw that from the Senate side. Bad at navigating this here. The Vermont was one of the first states that was called for Kamala, and
the senator,
senator. Oh well, I'm sorry, not Vermont, because obviously that was Bernie.
Oh, that was Bernie. So
was it?
It wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't Ohio. It wasn't Michigan. Although Slotkin's winning, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Was Elizabeth Warren up this time?
Where is she?
Right there.
Oh,
Oh yeah,
yes.
she already won. Okay. Yeah.
Called for her. Maybe it was a governor race.
No,
I mean,
it could have been a house race.
That's
Yeah.
Is it
Maybe it was Michigan.
I don't think it was a house race because.
Yeah, I'm almost sure it was a Senate race
yeah.
because now, interestingly enough, the one, so West Virginia has already gone Republican for the Senate. Justice, who was the former governor, they've already called that for him.
Mm-hmm.
The one to watch to make it is going to be Montana. Tester. Now, obviously, we won't have any polling from there for, probably till 11:30 tonight. But Tester, if the polling holds true, Tester, the incumbent, who's a Democrat, was getting slaughtered. He was down by like 15 points. So that would be interesting. Go click over Arizona for me for the Senate races. That one's going to be an interesting one.
Yeah.
Now,
Kari Lake has been super quiet, to be honest.
She has, but Ruben Gallego is a huge personality there. I can't remember if he was on TV or radio or something like that, but he has a really big following, as Kari Lake did. She used to be a TV host, I think, in the state. So I don't know. I don't know if she's going to win that.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, she's been really focused on that race. She's been involved in major lawsuits with that state over the last election. I think they screwed her over pretty significantly last time. But yeah, that's going to be a good one to watch. Yeah, we're not seeing much progress here in the state, in the Senate.
Senate races, yeah.
Senate races currently. Anything? I have to figure out what we were looking at. But
yeah, I can't remember, and maybe we'll
maybe something flipped and actually.
Let me see. Give me a second here, and I'll see if I can.
Yeah, so we're keeping a good tab on what's happening, but it's always too early to tell. We saw flip pretty quickly in some places. Some places can be called.
Oh, Vermont governor.
Oh, Vermont governor?
Yeah, Scott. They already called it for Republican Scott.
Okay, it was the governor race. Gotcha. Yeah, I think I can see that then. Interesting.
Which is interesting because the state went blue for the president. Again, this is that down ballot.
You're right. Yeah, Phil Scott.
This is that down ballot thing that I'm talking about, where they're not going to vote for Trump for president, but they're going to vote down ballot what's in their best interest.
Yeah, that is quite interesting because they were so strong.
And
And
he won handily.
Bernie Sanders,
the guy for the governor, he won. Like, it wasn't even close, to be honest.
In this race?
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 70%, 76%.
Yeah.
With, it's not complete reporting him, but yeah, that's interesting. Josh Stein got called in North Carolina over the Republican Mark Robinson.
Yeah, but Stein is neither one of them was incumbent, right? Yeah, I don't think either one of them was the incumbent, so that was an open seat.
They were not. Correct.
Yeah. And that may be, I'm trying to think of who was there, who vacated that seat, but I think it was a Democrat already, so that's not a flip.
I wonder if this is going to show me. I'm going to show me the incumbents. I can't see them if they haven't reported anything yet. Oh boy. Let's see. So it looks like they called one more state for Kamala, and Trump is still sitting at 111. So there was some state with I think looks like three electoral votes. Must have been in
Rhode Island or something.
Well, that was already called.
So look right here. Which one has 3? Right there, Delaware.
You're right, Delaware. No surprise there. Joe Biden's basement is on the beach.
So far in the Senate, they're projecting right now that they're not projecting. The GOP has already gained 1 seat, and the Democrats have already lost 1 seat, and that's West Virginia, because that was Joe Manchin, who didn't rerun. Justice to get. So if everything remained the same right now and Tester loses,
Where is Tester again?
he's Montana.
Okay. For the Senate.
Yeah, for the Senate. If Tester loses to Sheehy, the GOP has the Senate. If everything else remains the same,
Sure.
And nothing else does. Slotkin in Michigan, that was one that they said was going to be close. It doesn't look like
It's early.
it is early, but
yeah, they only have. It looks like there's actually equal amount of counties right now for each candidate.
And Detroit's already been called, and Grand Rapids has already been called. So those are the biggest two.
Lansing.
Yeah.
Significant reporting coming out of those cities.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know what y'all do, but like election night is like, you remember Christmas, like when you were a little kid and you were like so excited that Santa Claus was coming that you couldn't fall asleep, and you know.
They just called a bunch more states for Trump.
That Midwest.
Yeah, he picked up all of the central.
So they just called
states.
North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, Kansas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri.
And Texas, I think that was called.
And I think they called, and Texas.
Because he's sitting at 178
Yep.
now. Yeah, they called.
And
Colorado.
Louisiana.
Interesting. We're not seeing anything out of Colorado, but they called it for Harris already. I wanted to see if there was any possible flip there. Who knows? Maybe I'm definitely overly optimistic. I keep thinking that Americans are waking up and seeing this.
But how much of that, again, and I'll say this, if we had another, even say mid-range Republican candidate not named Donald Trump, I honestly don't even think this would be a contest. I mean, if you have somebody that has a little bit,
do you think it would be dominant for the Republicans?
Absolutely.
Oh, really?
Because there is that Liz Cheney, Mitt Romney group of people who will never vote for Donald Trump just because he's Donald Trump. So
right.
that's you have to overcome that, and the only way to overcome that is to gain inroads with other communities within the electorate, women, African Americans, Latinos. And if you don't make up, at a minimum, make up that gap.
Well, Trump is gaining in almost all those demographics.
So they say.
The only demographic he's losing in is white males.
Yeah.
Where he's trending the opposite way, which I don't know if that'll be the case in 2024.
Yeah.
I think especially in the young vote, I think he's winning over a lot of male votes.
The problem is, and I don't know how it is with Latino voters, but with black male voters, he was gaining pretty good with them, but their numbers of actually voting are down. So yes, he might have a higher percentage, but it's less of a voting population. So that's kind of an offset to that whole.
And going back to I guess the other potential matchups, but my concern too is I think it would have also been a landslide the other way had the Democrats put up any reasonable candidate.
Absolutely.
If they would have had a real legitimate primary and put up a Gretchen Whitmer or a Gavin Newsom, I think somebody, and it really could, there's probably a multitude of other reasonable candidates that they could have put up that espoused the less values and talking points, but just wasn't just a shill of a candidate like Kamala Harris. Then they would have dominated because
it's competing. right?
that
So right now
hatred,
they're
yeah.
competing. They're not competing because they're both well liked.
Sure.
It's competitive because they both are not liked.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it
This is
boils down to.
definitely a lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
So everybody is stuck on, I don't like Trump because
He says bad things.
Yeah. Well, and he wants to take my rights away so I can.
Which, by the way, that's another thing that kills me about. It's 2024.
Yeah.
You know, we have technology. Obviously, we're coming to you through like the advancements in technology by doing podcasts and doing these things. Google's free. You know, I don't understand how people don't understand how our government works. And I really feel like I listened to a lady earlier who they were interviewing who just got done voting. She said, well, Kamala Harris is a female and she's black. So, you know, that got my vote right there. I'm like, how are you so ignorant in voting something that's potentially pretty damn important to your life?
Are we just dumbing down children?
I mean, and
does it go back to that?
Yeah, it might be.
The last generations of people that continue to, they're dumbing down children, and then they're having dumb children because all they're worried about is their feelings. And,
what am I going to get, and what are you going to give me? And but I mean, realistically, it doesn't even go that deep because if your number one voting criteria is the gender of the candidate and the color of the candidate's skin.
Well, that's what they're told is matters all day, because if you are not, if you have any sort of, let's just say, if you're any minority person, then you are a victim.
Yeah, right.
And you deserve
everything.
You know, special treatment, and you're not just an American. You are that identity, and that's what matters.
Right.
And you need to rise up against the people that hate you, which is not true.
Yeah. Flip over or set your cursor over Georgia again and see where that's at.
This is interesting. Let me double check and refresh, because maybe. Yeah, we were getting. Oh, wait a minute. This is why I'm not in the presidential. There we go. So we've got 68% reporting in Georgia. Trump is leading 53 to 46. Very solid. Again, we touched on that a little bit earlier, but that's a state that is flipping.
Yeah.
Oh, North Carolina has now taken a lead for Donald Trump with 41% reporting. Virginia has taken a lead for Donald Trump with 51% reporting. That's trend.
Huge.
That is a trend that we're seeing as more votes come in. The major cities were already reporting in those counties, in those states.
So now the rural counties are coming in, and
that would be three.
That'd be it.
I'm sorry, two flipped states, Virginia and Georgia, and we already talked about Pennsylvania.
He would only have to win one of them.
Pennsylvania is still very early, only 18% reporting. Significant lead for Kamala Harris at 61 to 38.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that is we're definitely going to see a trend that closes that gap. Will it be enough? I don't see how Donald Trump doesn't win Pennsylvania. With everything that went down in Pennsylvania, he was the attempted assassination. People rallied around him there. Kamala basically abandoned the state
until yesterday and the day before.
I think.
Well, she did her closing arguments. I think she did 4 rallies in Pennsylvania yesterday. But what she abandoned was Arizona, Nevada.
Well, she had an opportunity also to take that state. If she would have selected a much more reasonable VP candidate, she would have had that state in the bag. I firmly.
Do you think that, you know, we're obviously speculating, right? And we don't see necessarily the behind the scenes numbers on these things like they're like the campaigns do. Like they're getting like probably 100% real time updates as stuff is coming in. And you know, what do you think that they're saying? Do you think that they know whether they're going to win or not right now?
I think they're seeing the trends. I think they don't know. I think they have a strong inkling. I think Kamala knew. I think she knew in the last 2 weeks. That's why she's taking days off.
Oh, I don't think so. I think she's arrogant enough to believe that she could do that and still get away with it.
I think
She ran her whole campaign that way.
I think. I mean, maybe I'm buying into some of the behind the scenes reporting that some people have said that her campaign and staff is like losing it, and she's losing it on them, and which I mean, I totally just buy into. I believe it because it makes sense that they'd be scrambling. They're screwing things up. Okay, we haven't even talked about Joe Rogan.
No.
Obviously,
the fact that he
endorsed Trump. He came out and endorsed Trump yesterday.
Yep.
I want to know more about that. I mean, obviously he had another sit down conversation. So he had sit down conversations with Donald Trump, conversation with J.D. Vance, conversation with John Fetterman. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
And then a conversation with Elon Musk.
Yep.
And following that conversation with Elon Musk, I don't think anything significantly changed in his opinion. I just think he had enough of the left, and John Fetterman I don't count, but because he's not part of this campaign, he's not even a big advocate. I don't think he even really
I don't think he likes Harris.
Harris all that much in the conversation. It wasn't really about that. I think Joe was doing his best to try to be balanced and let anybody on that would come on, and John Fetterman's the only crazy one that would do it.
Yep. There's actually been, I talked a lot of shit about Fetterman when he got elected, but he's actually come out with some stuff that I'm like, wow, the guy is kind of reasonable now that he's got his brain back.
Well, did you see the conversation? Because I wouldn't say he's got his brain back. I mean,
he's a lefty, but
yeah, but he.
Yeah, I know. He paused.
Very unable to respond.
Yeah.
It's weird. I think he is intellectually capable.
Well, he's a Harvard grad. I hope so.
Yeah, no, I think he really is reasonable and intellectually capable in the sense that, like, if he had time to think about something and he maybe could write something out and review it or something, maybe he could present a discussion. But sitting down and having a conversation where he can't grasp what you're talking about and he tries to speak so quickly and he stumbles on himself and skips words. He doesn't answer the question that was asked, and he just goes off on a rambling rant. I think he makes good opinions, but he wasn't even talking about the right topic.
Right.
Maybe that's a better way to describe it. Like
he has no focus, really.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but Joe Rogan was not afraid to at the last moment. I wish he did it earlier.
Yeah.
I think it would have had a bigger effect.
Yeah.
But he was not afraid to endorse because he got stiff-armed or whatever.
Slighted.
Yeah, slighted. That's a good way to put it. Slighted by the Kamala Harris campaign.
But he had to expect that. She look at the podcasts that she went on. They were all 100% favorable to her. They were all 100% softball. We want you to win, so we're gonna. They let her dictate. They let her campaign dictate the terms. Joe Rogan doesn't need to do that. He doesn't need to let anybody. There's nobody that can go in there and say, "Hey, I'll do your podcast, but only if you." No, he's going to be like, "Fuck you. I don't need you to come on my podcast. I'm inviting you because I have an audience of, however many million a week."
Yeah. No, this is not an opportunity for me.
Right. I don't need the opportunity.
Yeah. No, but I want to afford you that opportunity. I want to be as equal and fair as I can. But they knew where he leaned, and they knew that he was gonna ask them reasonable questions, not even like pushed back.
Well, I think the hard part for them, and this is across the board, not just with what they thought was going to happen in a Rogan one, was he also wasn't going to just let bullshit answers slide, because he would follow up.
Yeah.
He would be like, well, okay, you say, you come from a middle-class family. That's not what I asked.
He wouldn't let them go with the run-on word salad type sentence and say, and you didn't answer the question.
Right.
He's going to say, hey, but that did not answer the question. And he did that with Trump, and he did that with maybe some other people. I don't think it was J.D. Vance, because J.D. Vance had no problem answering any question.
Right.
J.D. Vance was so good in the debate, so good in any interview, that if he wants to make a point, he will say, "I'm going to answer your question. I'm tracking your question, but let me make this point." And then he gets back to that question.
Mm-hmm.
He will address that question. He is very good, very reasonable, very.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, he's with it. I think he's going to represent well. If he becomes the new border czar, which I don't think he will, but I think he would.
Well, I think we're going to have hopefully a Homeland Security secretary, if Trump wins, that is actually going to do their job. I mean, that's the crux of it. You don't have to appoint a border czar if you have somebody in the cabinet position that's actually performing.
I just hope he keeps giving me leave, like Mayorkas does, just to keep his job.
Right. So yeah, I mean that's a whole other ball. And that's the other thing too is, obviously what we see is that a Harris presidency is going to be 100% more of the same. So let's look at these other agencies that they have these people in charge. Let's look at DOD, which has been basically a failure. Let's look at Homeland Security, that's been basically a failure. Let's look at HHS, that's been basically a failure. I haven't heard. Transportation, Buttigieg has been an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
Your vote is not just a vote for that president; it's a vote for a continuation. Because my guess is she'll probably just keep most of these people, because it's easy, and she can't make. It's obvious that she can't make quality decisions.
I continue to hear horror stories about like how much people and like her staff hates her.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's not just coming from like.
No, she had the highest turnover. She had the highest, I believe, other than Sheila Jackson Lee, who was a congresswoman from Houston who passed away this year. Other than Sheila Jackson Lee, she had the highest turnover Senate staff, and she had the highest turnover vice president staff, because nobody can tolerate her. So imagine her as a president. She won't have a staff for very long. So
we're still not seeing any numbers out of Maryland, which is fine.
Well,
I guess they just don't care.
Yeah, I mean, they just know.
That's weird though, because I think almost every other state has results in. I don't know what's going on with Maryland, but I think, and I mentioned earlier that they started coming in because Fox has still less than 1% reporting out of Maryland, but CNN does not have anything. But what we are seeing is that those gaps closing or either extending for Donald Trump.
Yep, he's up 52% now in North Carolina.
That's only trending in his direction. He's already crested that hump. So I guess something we also haven't talked about is something we saw in 2020 was actually these trends for Donald Trump having a solid lead, and then we still have to worry about that late night boost.
I think the difference is, other than Pennsylvania, the other states had already. So, what states was it Georgia where they came in?
Pennsylvania.
It was Pennsylvania. Yes. So I think Pennsylvania is really the only one that
allows that.
Well, the thing is that they're not allowed to start counting those votes until. In the last election, they weren't allowed to start counting those votes until the polls had closed, which is why you got that big 3:30 in the morning dump when everyone was asleep. I don't know if they changed that law and they made it where they could start counting them day of election as opposed to after the polls closed. They may have done that because, I mean, their numbers seem to be coming in.
Pennsylvania, I'm watching this change in real time, and that gap is quickly closing. I think it was just 68-33 or something. So we have about 22% reporting in. I'm guessing by the time that we get about 50% reporting, is that gap's going to be very close.
Now, interestingly enough, the numbers that they're showing, it's 88 883,000 votes for Kamala and 622,000 votes for Trump, which tells me what they said yesterday was that 751,000 mail-in ballots for projected Democrats had come in total, and 541,000 for Donald Trump had come in total. So if that's the case, we're now past
That
the
gap.
mail-in ballots,
Yeah.
and they were down. Democrats were down. They had
They're
700.
going to need that.
Well,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
they had 751,000 this year that came in for Democrats. Last year it was 1.4 million.
Yeah.
So if that's the case, then that gap is going to close significantly.
And that was something that I predicted, I think, early on, is that there's a large amount of people, and this is what I hoped for also, large amount of people that said, I voted for Biden in 2020, I screwed up. You know, that I don't want to do that, and I don't love these. I don't love these candidates. I don't love my representation. I don't like the way my party treated this election, and I'm just going to stay home.
Yeah.
And I would like to see a realistic change in if voter turnout. It wouldn't just be this ever expanding, more votes than ever. Even though we have probably more social media connection than ever, more hype than ever. Across the board, all these apps, TikTok and Instagram and everything is pushing this stuff. I think there's more awareness than ever, more push to get out and vote. But I'm not sure if we're going to see record numbers like we did see.
Well, my point in that is the amount of ballots that came in was a 42% decrease for Democrats and an 8% increase for Republicans. So if we're already past that and all we have left is day of voting, Republicans historically have dominated day of reporting or day of voting. So that could be a really big, significant change.
Virginia is staying very, very tight.
Yeah.
North Carolina was very tight, but the trend, the change in that direction there is definitely in Trump's favor.
Yeah. So super interesting to watch this. And again, like we said, we know that some of these states are going to be very close. So, from 10 minutes to 10 minutes to 10 minutes could tell a very different story.
Right. Yeah,
so yeah, we just have to keep waiting and seeing, I guess.
So New Mexico is maybe something to keep an eye on. There's no reason to really think it will go for Trump.
Right.
It never did.
Although he did campaign there within the last week.
Well, and he wasn't afraid to campaign in New York, right?
No.
And I think maybe we probably talked about it on previous podcasts, but that's a great sign. That's a great sign, and I think he saw a lot of support. I think there's so many people that feel like their vote doesn't matter, that they don't come out because they're in such a dominant, blue district, region, whatever.
Right.
But the more people that get behind and believe that they actually their vote matters and they realize, I think there was so much good messaging and good signs of progress being made in New York, where people are realizing what Trump represents to them, what he can bring to them, what the right, in general, actually values them, is not the party of racism.
Right.
They recognize that the Democrats are the only racist party that's out there. I mean, they are.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to throw around that term, but it's not. It's which party is talking about race, ideologies.
Yeah. Gender, race, all the isms.
Yeah.
As opposed to like actual policy that's really going to affect somebody's life.
The right talks about Americans supporting all Americans, American citizens, not illegal immigrants,
Right.
but American citizens, and they're all the same.
Yeah.
They all deserve the same privileges. They're going to, and that's what they're going to push for. The right, the left hates a large portion of the American citizens. The especially white male
Yeah.
straight people.
Yep.
100%. And it's funny because then there's just a whole bunch of white male guilt out there that try to say, yeah, you're right.
That all comes from the same party.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's what I mean. So they're supporting them, and they feel, well, yeah, I'm going to support them because they're right. They're right. I am evil. I am the root of all evil. This is why
it's all my fault.
We did bad things in history. When it's funny because the entire course of history was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And everybody did bad things, and that's how it went down. And there's a lot of good things also, but you're focused on a couple of focal points that were significant. Should have been as significant.
Yeah, I don't know.
So where are we at? So but mentioning New Mexico, and this is also still trending
upward for
Trump. It's very early, only 13% reporting, but Donald Trump actually is holding a bit of a lead there. Let's look back and see if any of these other western states. Well, no, not really. But New Mexico was solidly blue.
Yep. And he won by what, 10%? 11%. Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. Biden won it by 11%.
Yeah. Very significant. We'll see if maybe what reporting is coming.
Yeah, who's reported. So Albuquerque still hasn't, which is a big. Yeah. And I don't know about Las Cruces, but
I'm wondering which of these states still have RFK Jr. on the ballot.
Maryland.
That he was he supposed to come off because he was only taking himself off of certain states, the major battleground states, right?
No, I think he was trying to get himself off every ballot because he just said he wasn't running anymore. Where the fight came in was these blue states. And these states that want Kamala Harris to win, to leave him on because they believe that his votes were going to take away from Trump.
Yeah, but I think I know he said this initially, and I don't know if it changed, but he was really only pulling himself off the ballots in the battleground states, and then he actually was still saying.
Now is he on the Pennsylvania?
He was saying, "Cast your ballot for me in these states like New York or whatever."
Right,
but not in places like.
Is he on the ballot in Pennsylvania?
No,
he is not.
No, Pennsylvania, Georgia.
Let's look at Arizona and Nevada. Nope. No. And no.
But none of these
candidates. That's kind of interesting.
Are in Nevada. Yeah, that's funny.
So Nevada's got. You can vote for Harris. You can vote for Trump. You can vote for Chase Oliver, or you can vote for none of these candidates.
Do they not allow write-ins?
Yeah, well, most don't for president.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought they for sure did because I thought there was always a good portion of Santa Claus votes.
Yeah, I mean, some states allow it, but not a lot of states allow it.
Oh, interesting.
Not for the top of the ticket.
I know D's nuts gets.
Yeah, of course.
A good portion of votes every election. Yeah. Okay. He's on the ballot in
California, of course, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah, of course. That he wants them to still take away votes in those states. So interesting. So
the Maryland Department of Elections is reporting that.
Oh, there we go. Finally, 50%.
Well, they got her at 62.8.
Okay.
And Trump at 35.2. Kennedy is on the ballot here, but he's got 0.8%.
Yeah, he was there.
And Jill Stein has 0.8%. Let's see more results. Oh, Chase Oliver, he's got 0.4%, so nobody cares about him. U.S. Senate, Rick Scott, that's Florida.
Stupid Maryland.
Also, Brooks is up 55 to 49, or 50. let's look at her race real quick. She's up 55-42 over Larry Hogan right now.
That's pretty significant.
Um,
You will be correct.
let's see. So Ohio is the other Senate race where Bernie Moreno and Sherrod Brown. Bernie Moreno right now has a lead
Over the
incumbent Sherrod Brown.
Yeah.
So that would be another one that would flip. That would be a very significant.
So Frederick County has voted for Larry Hogan, but they voted for Kamala Harris.
Yeah. So again, those down ballot, that's another case of the down ballot,
So it looks like, I mean, because this is such a numbers game, Montgomery County, more than, 100,000 more votes for Elsa Brooks.
Yeah.
I guess she knew where to go.
Well, she was the county executive for PG County.
And interesting. So Montgomery County, oh my gosh. Yeah, PG County.
Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. And that's just such a significant portion of the population.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Moco and Baltimore County are I think the two biggest.
Well, it's aren't these sanctuary cities?
Yes.
So I wonder
100%.
who else is voting in these elections. Yeah, it's very concerning. Yeah, I mean, this is what bothers me though, is the extreme.
Here's another interesting thing to watch. So to watch who Wisconsin goes for president, because right now the incumbent senator Tammy Baldwin is losing to Republican Eric Hovde 53% to 45%.
Right.
So that would be another Senate seat that flipped. So that would be 4 total. That would be 4 total flips. What are you laughing at?
Me.
Oh, Rip.
We got Yellowstone.
There you go.
That's right. It's time to take somebody to the train station. So Wisconsin could do the same exact thing, where they could vote for Harris, but then down ticket, they went Republican.
Yeah, you're right.
So that'll be another interesting one to watch.
Amy Klobuchar is winning.
Yeah, wow, that's not a shock. Did anyone even run against her?
Barely. Oh, wait a minute. Where we lost something here? Oh, that's a different. So Fox News versus CNN. Kamala has significantly less called states on the CNN.
So here you go. So right now, Georgia is obviously leaning Republican. North Carolina is now leaning Republican. Wisconsin is leaning Republican. Pennsylvania, they have still leaning Kamala Harris. And Michigan, they have leaning Kamala Harris.
Oh, yeah, Wisconsin is a tight race.
Yeah, it's
right
very
now.
tight.
Looks like I'm seeing that's leaning blue right now. Michigan heavily leaning blue. All very early, minimal reporting coming in right now. Yeah, I guess again, looking at where I haven't seen any states that appear to be potentially flipping from red to blue that were red.
No, yeah, I don't think that was a concern, to be honest. The other way is flipping from blue to red, I think, was always the concern.
Yeah, well, I mean, but that's what we want. I mean, I don't.
Right, I don't think that those. I mean, let's be honest. The red states, other than Georgia, have pretty much remained red states.
Well, that's going to be it should be an easy call. Easy.
You would think.
Yeah, because if it only takes to flip Pennsylvania, to flip Virginia, to flip North Carolina, to flip Arizona, flip Nevada, like if any of those would have flipped, I think I take back North Carolina because it was red last time. But other than that, like that would have won the election for Trump.
Yep.
Any one of those, and if Kamala's going to have to flip something to balance out those other flips.
Correct.
And it's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
That's why, I know we had the late stuff last time around, but I really fully expect it to be quite clear that some of those dates will be solid red and not subject to much change.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, if we're not seeing any other states potentially flipping, these states, when there's a trend of several other states flipping, now Pennsylvania, that gap.
Now, here's an interesting one. Nebraska, the Nebraska election for the Senate, Deb Fischer, who is the Republican incumbent, is losing to Dan Osborne, who is an independent.
Oh, interesting.
But, you know, independents typically caucus with the Democrats. So that'll be an interesting one to watch, too. I mean, it's only a 27,000 vote difference with 35% reporting,
Mm-hmm.
so that could change very quickly.
Gotcha.
But just as in an effort to remain not necessarily neutral, but consistent in reporting what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Ted Cruz, who everyone was, Texas always cracks me up. You know, the Democratic Party is always like, Texas is going blue this time. Ted Cruz is going to get, he's losing by 15 points in the polls and all that. And then it never pans out. I mean, it's always like right now he's up 61% reporting and he's up by 53%. He's got 53%. And the guy, it's 53 to 45.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, actually, New Mexico has another Democrat incumbent who's slightly losing to a Republican, Dominici.
Dominici and Heinrich.
Yeah. Will we see a flip there?
Yeah, like I said, it's very possible that they could get up to 54.
Mm-hmm.
Just because I think, again, the down ballot stuff's going to be the story, I think, more than the presidency.
Sure.
To me, I mean, but all right. Well, we have been on here for an hour. I don't think that Jimmy or I want to be on here for another 3 hours. So, hey, listen, it's election night. I'm just glad, one thing that makes me happy is at the end of the day, I don't really give a shit who somebody votes for. That's your personal preference. You're either voting for or against your best interests, knowingly or not knowingly. I have a hard time believing it's not knowingly in a lot of cases. But the fact that I think we're going to have a record number of people who actually came out and voted in this election, maybe for the wrong reasons. I don't like somebody is never a good reason for me to decide to vote or not vote. But I hope that that trend where more people going out and voting during these elections and even primaries, we have 360 something million people in this country and only 150 million people vote on average.
Well, if you think about adults.
Children, I mean, you got that, but I certainly think that the numbers should be higher. I mean, if you're not cresting a third, like I said, as a third, I don't know. I mean, I would have to go back and look, I guess, at what the actual demographic is of adults to children. I mean, they've been saying that our number of children are declining in this country, so I gotta believe that there's more adults than there are kids.
Not too many. I mean, I don't know what our replacement rate is. It's pretty low. I mean, as far as actual children being born, not just our overall replacement rate. I think I know it's less than it should be.
Yeah.
The only reason why we maintain a population is through immigration.
Legal immigration.
Legal immigration. Well, definitely illegal immigration keeps us above that.
But hey, like I said, will I call people who voted for Harris dumb? Yes. Do I hate them? No, I don't hate them. You know, and that's the difference. The difference between people who are on the conservative, Republican, even libertarian side, as opposed to the people that are on the Democratic side, is where Democrats have severed family ties
Oh yeah.
because they vote for somebody that they don't like. I mean, that's insane to me. I saw a lady post this big ass long video yesterday of how she was screaming at Donald Trump because she no longer has a relationship with her father because he voted for Trump. Not because the father cut the relationship, because she did, because she found out that he voted for Donald Trump. That, I mean, yes, that's immaturity, it's stupidity, and you know, I hope that she figures that out at some point and rekindles that relationship. But an election should never draw that type of response from a person. You get to vote again in 4 years. If you're not happy with the outcome of this one, in 4 years you get to do it again, and hopefully it, you know, works out for you that time.
Yeah. With that being said, however, we've been in this direction for 4 years already.
Yep.
If we continue in this direction for another 4 years,
Yeah, it could be painful.
It takes a bigger hole. And this is, I mean, I felt that way about Obama. I honestly thought that we were trending in a downward spiral that we wouldn't be able to dig ourselves out of. And unfortunately, in 2016, we actually turned that around quite quickly.
Yep.
And I was gonna, if Hillary won, though,
you don't know.
I was gonna be way more concerned about the chances of ever coming back. And I know Elon Musk has warned about the changes that Kamala Harris would instill in our country. And
I would say attempt to make, because again, it doesn't look like she's going to have the legislative branch behind her.
That's a good point.
So
that's fair.
But again, I mean, my point in that whole thing is, don't let it ruin your fucking personal relationships over an election. That is just absolutely pointless. Look, I work with some extremely liberal, progressive people. We love each other. We pick on each other about, you know, who we're voting for and those kinds of things. But we don't hate each other, and we can't be around each other. Oh my God, I can't work in the same office as you because you're voting for this candidate or this candidate. It never gets that severe.
Well,
one
side of those.
Well, right. But I'm fortunate in that, you know, they're big liberals, but at the same time they're reasonable people.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't always get that, and it's just sad. It's just sad to me to see.
Well, the majority of the left don't spend time around conservatives.
That's true.
Opening those conversations, you can tell the ones that do, because they are willing to talk and actually are reasonable, can have a conversation and be fine.
Yeah,
and that's great. You can share ideas and try to find common ground and disagree and move on.
Yeah.
But there's plenty that don't, and they're afraid.
Yeah, and if you're ruining lifelong relationships and family relationships because of who that person's voting for, that says more about you than it does about them. So I'll leave it at that. It's going to be a long night. You know, hopefully tomorrow we'll have results by tomorrow, and you know, we move on from there.
Yeah, well, nothing that's like shocking right now, which is, I think, a good thing.
Mm-hmm. There's no, it's not. Yeah,
nothing's there that's making me super nervous.
Right.
I'm still I wonder who the 30% are of the disapproval people. I'm never going to figure that out. I still don't get it. The approval people, the people that still approve of Joe Biden's job. But anyway, it's the trend is okay, and we'll see what happens. Ask me at 3 a.m. and make sure we're still good.
And if your candidate loses tonight, and I'm speaking specifically to the left because you guys are the only ones that ever threaten this, don't do anything stupid. I mean, you know, we've heard the whole, if Trump wins, I'm going to have to leave the country, or I just don't know how I'm going to survive, or anything. Don't do stupid shit. It's an election. Again, in 4 years, you get to do it all over again. And, you know, not, take a nod from the celebrities that all told you that they were going to leave the country last time Donald Trump won. They're all still here. So, and they all survived, and they're all still making millions of dollars, and they're all still, you know, doing the same exact thing they were doing 8 years ago. So it's not the end of the frickin' world, is my point.
That's true.
So
We'll be okay.
We'll be okay. Everyone will be fine. So we will talk to you all later. And hey, I hope you all have a great rest of your night and enjoy the numbers coming in, because I know I do. It's like Christmas morning. Talk to you all later.